Myles Garrett, the NFL's reigning Defensive Player of the Year, has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. He announced in a statement Monday speculation over Garrett's future in Cleveland has ramped up in recent months after he made comments about wanting to know the team's off-season plans following a 3-14 season before further committing to the organization. I think that's all fair, Louis Riddick. In my humble opinion, which team should want Myles Garrett the most?
Well, the teams that are close, that are Super Bowl caliber and Super Bowl contenders, that's what Myles wants. That's what Myles is after. Myles isn't after a payday. He wants to get out of Cleveland because he doesn't think there's any hope as far as them being able to reach the pinnacle of the profession, which is getting to the Super Bowl. So I have three: the Commanders, the Lions, and the Chargers. Let me start with the Commanders. Why? Third most cap space in 2025, have great coaching, have great management, and have a quarterback that right now is the talk of the NFL outside of the people that right now are participating in the Super Bowl. That's why. He goes there. They have multiple free agents at the defensive end position that they need to replace. And Myles is an absolute organization changer or enhancer. They don't need the organization to be changed as far as culture in Washington. They just need it enhanced from a defensive line perspective. He automatically does that. The Lions, look, it's well known what they lack in terms of pass rush and what they lack this year. Aiden Hutchinson coming back off of injury. Stalwart head coach, stalwart general manager, stalwart ownership that right now is backing the front office and the coaching staff in a way that it's never been backed. They can win in Detroit, obviously, immediately and be Super Bowl contenders. He does nothing but enhance that. The Chargers are the one that's most interesting to me in this regard. Throw out the fact that they're in the AFC and maybe Cleveland doesn't want to trade him to the AFC. But Justin Herbert, cap space. Khalil Mack's going to retire. Joey Bosa can't stay healthy. Justin Herbert right now is an absolute freakazoid and a star. Jim Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the entire NFL who has ownership and the front office firmly backing him and behind him. Those are the three teams that have the cap space, they have the football structure, and they're right on the cusp of doing big things in the NFL that probably Myles would be attracted to, and they should be attracted to him because he could help nudge them further down the road to maybe, in the case of the Chargers, toppling Kansas City in the West. And if you're talking about the Washington Commanders, this is a football team. Look, they're going to be in the Super Bowl in the next 2 or 3 years. They're just going to be in it. They are going to be in it. In Detroit, it's going to be a constant reload every year now. They have almost tasted success, and really, pass rusher is the last thing that they need.
I don't disagree with anything that you said. When I was thinking about the teams, I wasn't thinking about the cap space. I was just thinking about preferred landing spots. So without thinking about the cap space at all, the two teams that I came up with was the Buffalo Bills, because I'm thinking about a defense. If you got a pass rusher that can wreak havoc, that gives Josh Allen more bites at the apple, essentially. And I was looking at that since Buffalo's knocking on the door. Certainly Myles Garrett in that particular situation, obviously coming from Lake Erie and Cleveland, it ain't that big of a deal for him to play under the inclement weather conditions in Buffalo and what have you. He's still a stud, and he would do his thing, and I think he would help that franchise immensely. The other thing is the Dallas Cowboys, because he's from Arlington, Texas. He wanted to be a Cowboy. He was hoping and praying that they would ultimately move up and select him in the draft, but it never happened. He still's got family and relatives there and all of that other stuff, and obviously bringing a native to the Cowboys would be one of the things that make Jerry Jones look very good. They obviously don't have the cap space. You know, I think they rank like 26th in cap space, for crying out loud. The likelihood of the Dallas Cowboys getting him would be slim to none. Let me throw a couple of other teams out there. How about the Philadelphia Eagles? Talk about Howie Roseman, and even though, you know, obviously they only got like $18 million in cap space, the reality is that he always finds a way to do what needs to get done. And with the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl right now, possibly in position to win it, of course, you get a guy like Myles Garrett to add to that defensive line. Think about the havoc the Philadelphia Eagles could create for years and years to come with Carter and the rest of the crew that they already have there. So I look at the Philadelphia Eagles and, of course, the Detroit Lions come to my mind as well. Like you said, Louis, they got to piecemeal everything, constantly changing coordinators and what have you. Both of them got head coaching jobs. We know that in Chicago and New York, respectively. There's going to be some changes that's coming there. You never know what the kind of philosophy is moving forward, but it doesn't matter what the philosophy is when it comes to Myles Garrett. You'll figure out a way to plug him in. With Detroit knocking on the door, adding somebody like him would be important. Philadelphia, like I said, that would be pivotal as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this all starts with Cleveland and what their viewpoint is at the number 2 pick in this year's draft. Okay, so how realistic this becomes starts with that. They have to get a quarterback. If they think one of those two picks, that at least the top two quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, at least by all accounts, if they think that they're worthy of that pick, then I think they could be even a little bit more selective if you're the Cleveland Browns. If they deem that neither of those guys are worthy of that second pick, then quarterback has to be a part of this trade request if it's going to kind of come to fruition. Stephen, I'll touch the Dak Prescott one. That's when the Cowboys become realistic. But the problem is, to your point, the salary cap for Dallas. The second point is Dak would have to waive his no trade clause. And the third point is Cleveland right now is $63 million over the cap. So it just seems unlikely while that would fix the quarterback situation. That's why I go to Minnesota. I go to Minnesota because if you're the Browns and you sit there and go, no, those quarterbacks, we don't like them. Myles wants to be out. We don't want to trade him, but we have to get a quarterback. And if the Vikings are reserved to sit there and go, you know what, we do want to re-sign Sam Darnold, and that does give us some flexibility with J.J. McCarthy, their first-round pick out of Michigan last year, then if you're Cleveland and you really like McCarthy and you like him better than the quarterbacks that are coming out, then Minnesota becomes the team that you can at least fill that massive void. Does it go McCarthy and Van Ginkel for Myles Garrett? Those are obviously bigger pictures, but I think Minnesota is the team that has at least that quarterback situation. The Philly one, I think, is interesting in regards to this, Stephen A. Their biggest cap hit next year is Jalen Hurts. It's $21 million. That is the smallest, largest team cap hit in the NFC, meaning that their most expensive player is the least expensive out of every team in the NFC. So cap space-wise, they actually have the ability to do it. That's because their drafts over the last 4 years have just been so phenomenal. So I do agree that the Philly one is something that is realistic if you were the Cleveland Browns and Philadelphia. Minnesota for me.
Yeah, what's most interesting about this is what is Andrew Berry's position on this and how could it potentially change down the road? Because look, I do believe that at some point in time he's going to have some talks with some people, because Myles Garrett would not have issued this statement, would not have put it in writing if he wasn't going to be dug in and he wasn't going to be committed. That's for sure.
I totally agree.
We both know that because we talked to him.
Right.
And he was very calculated as far as what he wanted to see get done and what kind of assurances he wanted that this organization was going to do what was necessary.
Right.
Look, Philly.
Lewis.
Look, yeah, go ahead.
Guys, I got to hit the top of the hour.
Let me say this. Myles Garrett this is not a money play. The man wants to be in a better situation. And Andrew Berry, we got to make sure we understand, Molly, that really wasn't him that decided to go out there and give Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed years ago. That was an ownership move.
Yep.
But nevertheless,
I want to keep you on top for 14 plus years. So let's hit this break. Coming up, fresh hour here. Could Jalen?
Chai thứ ba nha.